Aloha, I'm Eva Andrade. I'm the president and CEO of Hawaii Family Forum, and this is Faith in Politics. And we'd like to thank Kalo TV for our partnership in order to bring this information out to you. Today, we're going to talk about March 11th, 1970, when Hawaii became the first state to legalize abortion. And we're going to see if we can make a difference, even though abortion is legal in the state of Hawaii. So let's chat about that. Aloha and welcome, dear viewers. Welcome back to another show of Faith in Politics. And once again, I'm pleased to have as my guest Janet Grace Hochberg. Last time we talked with Janet, she was able to share her mana'o on our kapuna care and things we need to be watching for when it comes to isolation and loneliness among our kapuna. But today is a very important topic. We want to talk about abortion in Hawaii. And we want to start with what happened on March 11th, 1970. HB 61 became Act 1. And that was the law that allowed abortion in Hawaii. We were the first in the nation, and we were quickly followed by New York and a couple of other states. And I think what shocked a lot of people at that time was that the law became law without signature of the governor, who was Catholic. And we are going to talk a little bit about that today and what has changed on abortion in Hawaii, if it has, where we stand as a state on life issues. But let's go back to the beginning. Abortion is legalized, and there was a strong need for the faith community to raise its voice. Janet, you want to tell us a little bit about Hawaii Right to Life and the history behind that great organization and where it stands today?
Sure, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to talk about a tough subject, a tough issue that I believe is really the most precious issue to the heart of God, and that's the sanctity of life, the intrinsic value of each person, both born and unborn. So back in 1973, Hawaii Right to Life was formed in response to the legalization of abortion. And we know that's the Supreme Court decision of the infamous Roe v. Wade, where abortion was decriminalized, elective abortion on demand, up to and through all 9 months of pregnancy. So I think a lot of people don't know that abortion is legal up until the very last month. So that's then, and just kind of now you have radical pro-aborts in really deep blue progressive states like New York that want to make it okay to kill a baby outside its mother womb, or not actually give it the same protections as born people if something goes wrong in an abortion attempt, in an abortion procedure. So in 73, Hawaii Right to Life became a national affiliate, or became an affiliate of National Right to Life, and joined a whole bunch of other states that formed their Right to Life voices to really push back against this evil of, killing unborn babies. The organization has grown or evolved in the almost 50 years it's been in existence. It's gone through a couple of different name changes. In 2011, it rebranded to Aloha Life Advocates, that I think wanted to give it a little more compassionate sound in its name, because people think that pro-life advocates are extremists or sensationalists, we're radicals, and we're really
there can be. I mean, let's be honest. Looking across the nation, there are different kinds of activists, and I like to talk about the elephant in the room. People are called to activate because of their deeply held religious convictions in different manners. Some people are called, as you know, Janet, to be at Planned Parenthood with signs praying for people. There are some people that are called to hang around at the legislature all the time and knock on their legislators' doors or make phone calls. Some activists are just prayer champions. They feel like what the Lord has called them to do is just pray, and they're needed because this is a spiritual battle. So thanks for mentioning that, Janet. You know, we don't want to put anybody into any corners, because the Lord blesses each person differently with different giftings.
Yeah, and I can appreciate that. And then there are the radicals, but for the most part, we're a coalition of people that, you know, believe that life begins at conception and again ends at natural death. With the Lord, you know, says it's appointed once for man to be born and then face judgment. And what's amazing is that, you know, even before, you know, he formed us, he knew us. You know, and in our mommy's womb, he even goes on to say, you know, that we're fearfully and wonderfully made, and all of those amazing truths of, you know, the creator and his creation and knitting and you know, weaving us together. But no, I agree with you. There are those that really can put our credibility on the line. But I think that, you know, for the most part, we have to take a stand and defend, you know, the most vulnerable amongst us. And so we rebranded to Aloha Life Advocates in 2011, which was more along the mission of having here in Hawaii strive to make life a clear choice for all, right? We advocate through education, public policy, and political action. We're the largest human rights organization exclusively in Hawaii, dedicated to life issues. And we like to believe that we do that, you know, with aloha, compassion, and respect for others, as you were saying. And, you know, it's such a sensitive, delicate topic, because since the legalization of abortion on demand in America in 1973, which we will talk a little bit about, or, you know, we'll talk about 1970, when Hawaii was sadly the first state in the nation to legalize it. But since 1973, we have to understand there's been over 60 million children who have lost their lives. That means that there's a mommy and a daddy attached to each one of those babies, if not multiple. So women suffer, and there's physical, emotional, and mental fallout and aftermath after an abortion for both moms and dads. And so yes, it's a really hot button topic, and it really rubs people the wrong way.
And again, because I want to make sure that viewers are not thinking that we're sugarcoating this, because we're not sugarcoating this. We, as pro-life individuals, have never been okay with back alley abortions that were taking place before abortion was legalized, when women were seeing doctors that were maybe not the best doctors to be seeing. And we acknowledge that there were women that sought that out. What we're saying is that there's an answer that will give hope, that will steer women into an avenue that will promote life. We're not gonna, we don't want to go back to back alley abortions. That has never been the position of the pro-life community. We want women to be educated so they can make the right decision. That's what we do. And as Janet said, doing everything with love and care and aloha, because that's who we are. That's intrinsically who we are as people who serve Jesus. So Janet, let's go back quickly to 1970, because I want to read this statement that was given by Governor Burns at the time. And I want to get your reaction to it. So he says, this was again House Bill 61. It was the first act in 1970. And he says, quote, "I have declined to sign this bill after much study and soul searching, after receiving competent advice from island and national specialists in law, medicine, theology, human rights, and public affairs, and also sincere prayer to the Creator named in our nation's Declaration of Independence as the source of our inalienable rights of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Give me your thoughts.
You know, I'm not here to judge Governor Burns, you know, or his decision. I'm here to say that back in the 70s, we didn't have technology and science, which are clearly on our side today. The facts are undeniable that human life begins at conception, when the sperm and egg actually meet, and there's the cytoblast, you know, and the chromosomes are formed, and right there, a whole person's DNA is boom on the circuit of humanity. You know, but you know, my heart aches for the man. It had to be excruciatingly painful. He didn't sign it. So when obviously a governor doesn't sign a bill, it automatically becomes law. But I think to that point as well that that's something that he has to stand before God and answer to. And maybe Eva, and I've read that quote, that article many times, and maybe he did in his heart of hearts.
I agree with you. I think, you know, when I read that quote, I imagine myself being him back in a day when, as you said, they were dealing with a set of facts as they existed then. And him not signing it, you could say that that meant he didn't necessarily agree with the what it was going to do, but at the same time he wasn't strong enough to stop it, because maybe he believed it was going to save women. Again, you know, I agree with you that we're not here to condemn anybody, because we were not in the governor's seat at that time. We don't know all the thousands and thousands of phone calls that he received, and he did. I was going to Our Lady of Good Counsel grade school at the time, and I will tell you that everybody was talking about it. Everybody assumed that because he was Catholic, that he was going to stop this horrendous law from passing. And I think that we need to always remember, as people of faith that are involved in politics, that we don't have to agree with people. And if it goes against God's promises and God's premises, we should be opposed to it. But there is a way to do everything with grace and mercy, and we want people to get involved. So Hawaii's law back in 1970, it said that it had to be done by a doctor, it had to be done in a hospital, and you had to be a resident. But let's fast forward to 2006 under Governor Linda Lingle, and she actually, as a Republican governor, she actually expanded abortion in Hawaii by removing the residency requirements. Do you have any thoughts about what happened back then in 2006?
You know, I think, again, I think it's just political pressure. And, you know, we know Governor Lingle did some great things for our state, and then she did some not so great things for our state. And I think my experience with her is that she's middle of the line, she's moderate. You know, you can't, you know, so with the residency requirements, basically it was a 90-day residency requirement. You had to live on island for 90 days. I think there was a lot of chatter about neighbor islands not having as much access, you know, at the time as well. All kinds of pressure from the radical pro-aborts, Planned Parenthood, other, you know, the Women's Democratic Caucus, just saying, hey, you know what, we got to up our game here. We got to open and expand abortion on demand here. We got to make it more accessible for women and girls. And I think there was a lot of pressure not to force women to wait that long. And you didn't, you know, you could come from out of state and have an abortion.
Janet and I, neither of us are attorneys, but I also think that back then there was some constitutional questions on whether you could have a residency requirement. I'd have to actually go back and look. But yeah, I think that as sad as that was, it was kind of expected, right? I mean, these things were happening across the nation. So Hawaii right now, fast forwarding now to where we stand today. Right now, let's look at the makeup of Hawaii's legislature, right? So there's 25 senators, right? And we're assuming that maybe 3 of them are pro-life, right? We're not talking about somebody who might be opposed to assisted suicide, but supports a woman's right to
Correct.
choose. And we have legislators that are in that boat.
Okay.
Yeah, we're talking what Americans United for Life,
Yes.
and the Hawaii and the Right to Life community would say is a true pro-life legislator, right? Okay, so again, 25 senators, maybe 3. And I'm saying this very loosely because there has never been an actual survey and poll that we have proof of, right? So we're just kind of going on relationships and statements that have maybe been given.
And voting records.
Right, and voting records. We have 51 representatives, and looking back at voting records and statements, it looks like there's only between 7 to 10 truly pro-life representatives. Now that means that there's only, going based on this formula, that there'd only be about 12% in the Senate that would be considered pro-life, and only 13 to 19% in the House that would be considered pro-life. Now, looking at that frame, Janet, maybe speak to why we don't see so much pro-life legislation coming out of our state capital.
You know, again, I think that we have buried the issue so deep here in our state that Planned Parenthood has just really cornered the market on infiltrating our middle schools and high schools, and really pushing an agenda that encourages behavior that sets our teens up, you know, to get pregnant and things like that. Let me just okay, let me stay focused on your question. So with the complexion of the legislature and why we don't see bills in our favor moving through the way we would like.
Or bad bills being stopped, right?
Or bad bills being stopped. I think that, again, there is a lack of political will and courage during the assisted suicide hearings 2 years ago. I was really disappointed in that not one of them stood up. Not one. There may be some that voted against it, but not one stood up and took that bill and said absolutely unequivocally, I disagree with the assisting someone in killing themselves. Not one.
You know, to be fair, though, I think that, and you and I were there a lot at the Capitol. Every time there was a hearing, definitely I was there. I know that on their behalf, I think what was starting to happen is that people in the pro-life community started to like fall away. You know, as you remember, Janet, those first hearings were packed, right? There were a lot of people showing up at the early hearings. But when it became clear, and it did become quite clear that the legislature was dead set on this, they were they were quite frankly, you know, telling us this is going to pass. I mean, even legislators on our side were saying this, it's going to go through, it's going to go through. I think what happens, and this is very true even today, is that the pro-life community in Hawaii feels very beaten up. They feel like they participate, but nothing ever happens. And I think that's why I specifically wanted to give the layout of the legislature, to give people an understanding of what we're dealing with. And legislators are going to start not being so vocal if they don't have support. And I think this is a message for people that are watching. If we get people active and involved and more people show up, I think we will start to see more and more legislators willing to come out and speak about these issues. So yes, I agree that they did not fight as much as we thought they did, Janet. You're absolutely right. They didn't. But I want to say that they were losing the cover of having people of life and faith standing behind them in the gallery. In fact, it was so bad when the bill got passed, there were only about 12 of us left that were there at that final hearing in the Senate. And I'm hoping that with these episodes that we're doing, that we're going to get more and more people educated and willing to come out and raise their voice. I'm sorry, Janet, go ahead.
No, excuse me. And that's the thing, we've got to be engaged. It's for such a time as this. You think of Esther that didn't want to go out, and she was scared, but she knew that there was going to be an annihilation, of her bloodline, and so she stepped out in faith and trusted, the living God of the universe. And what did he do? He saved the people. You think of all the greats in the Bible that were called out to do really scary things by God. And, it's a scary thing, sadly, to stand up for, the right to life, which for us should be actually a very easy and passionate move for us to do, to stand up for the most vulnerable, defenseless, weakest, vulnerable people. Mother Teresa said, a nation that kills its unborn children is the poorest of poor. This is America. This is Hawaii, where we value, you have the Aloha spirit here, where family is valued deeply. But, to your point, Eva, you're right. But I think that we've allowed our representatives to go so far deep and so far progressive to just, foul, the mainland, that we during some of these, assisted suicide, you had offshore lobbyists that were being
highly paid lobbyists.
Here. And when you fight against a machine with that much power, it's like David said, you come at me with sword and spear, I come at you in the name of the living God. And that's how we need to go out to the legislature, again, in love and compassion, with aloha, unified with one voice, one message, saying the same thing the same way. And we have to dig deep a little bit where it hurts and give some money to the experts in, the life that can advocate articulately on the life issues, like Hawaii Family Forum, and things like that. So we can build our coalition deeper and stronger, and we can become credible again, and we can educate the community and the public. And I think that we cannot give up the fight. We've got to continue to lock arms, or we're going to lose everything that we believe in here. Let me just back up a little bit. I don't even know if people know here in Hawaii that minor girls can have an abortion, and they do often without parents even knowing it. I know many teenagers that have had abortions without their parents ever knowing it. It's a tragedy. There is no parental notification. I'm not even saying consent, where the guidance counselor calls you up and says, oh, Mrs. Andrade, I've got your daughter in here. She thinks she's pregnant, or she did a pregnancy test. She is pregnant. Just wanted to notify you of this. That isn't even a requirement here.
You're right, Janet. And I think, again, I want our viewers to understand the reality of what we deal with here in Hawaii. Americans United for Life places Hawaii at number 46 for states that protect life. As Janet mentioned, we're at the bottom of the barrel. The other thing a lot of people don't know is, I hear this from people in the faith-based community all the time. Well, you know what? One day, with the way the Supreme Court's going, one day they're going to overturn Roe versus Wade. Well, even if that happens, we have a Freedom of Choice Act that was passed here in Hawaii in 2006. What that means is, if Roe versus Wade is ever overturned, Hawaii is still going to have legalized abortion.
Yeah.
And I think that unless we change the makeup of the legislature, this battle is going to continue to be tough. There's no way Janet and I are going to sit here and tell people, you know what, if we all show up at the Capitol and we raise our voices, we're going to make a difference. Well, I think that that's good, and that definitely should happen. In fact, every January, Hawaii Life Alliance will sponsor a great rally at the Capitol, an opportunity for people to come together, and they should. But that is not the only thing that can happen. Hawaii Family Forum was behind huge rallies when same-sex marriage was being debated. We had thousands upon thousands of people that showed up at the Capitol, and same-sex marriage was still passed. Voices need to be raised, and there does need to be rallies. So I don't want anybody walking away from this saying that, well, Eva said don't do rallies. That's not what I said. We have a lot of work, is what I'm saying. We have got to realize that it's an uphill battle. We are going to be like salmon swimming upstream. We're going to need to lock arms, because we're only going to be able to do this if we unify. We cannot have any more infighting among groups. If you're an activist that believes in protests and rallies, we should applaud your willingness to put yourself out there. If you're the kind of person that just likes to write letters to the editor, we should be applauding that. Christians need to stop beating each other up, because we are all in this battle together. We all need to work together, and it's really, really important to do that. And going back to what Janet said, legislators need to be in place that have a faith-based foundation. And that's only going to happen if the faith-based community gets up and votes. Now, I know I know somebody's watching this right now, Janet, you're going to laugh. I know people are watching this right now going, yeah, but there's nobody good to vote for. Well, then maybe there's somebody out there right now that the Spirit of God is beginning to move you, that maybe it's time for you to run for office. Or maybe you know somebody in your community that would be a great legislator. Maybe the Lord wants you to be the person that kind of puts that thought in their head. So there's a lot yet we have to do. But Janet, as always, we're running out of time again, but let's focus back on abortion in Hawaii and what's happening at the legislature right now. What is the current move of the legislature to do in the expansion of abortion?
So one of their big agendas is to open it up. I think we had touched on this somewhere in the show, for advanced practice registered nurses to be able to perform an abortion here. I think there's a lot more to talk about, as you said, because we do have the abortion pill. So there's medical abortions, right? And then there's surgical abortions as well. And now what I really want to share with people too is that abortion is legal here abortion is legal up until all 9 months of pregnancy. Here in Hawaii, the cutoff date is 5 months in 23 days. Okay, so teenagers can have abortions up until their 5 months of pregnancy in 23 days. There are a lot of ways to circumvent the system. We know that because we've secret shopped Planned Parenthood together. But as far as what the legislator is trying to do right now, they're trying to expand it for a whole bunch of reasons. Again, they feel that their access is being denied on the neighbor islands. There aren't enough clinics to do abortions for women and girls over on our neighbor islands. That doctors really don't want to be doing abortions. There's a whole host of reasons that we can get into, but it's a very, very, very slippery slope. You know, you want it done in a hospital with a licensed physician or an osteopathic surgeon, which is what is required under current law. And you know, a lot of women have died on an abortion table. You know, these are the facts that people don't talk about, that people are unaware of. The truth, right? Everything is shrouded in safe and legal, the talking points from Planned Parenthood, but abortion isn't always safe and legal. So one thing that I do commend here in Hawaii's law, if there's anything good, is to be done by a licensed doctor, osteopath surgeon, and in a in a hospital setting. Did I have that correct,
Yes,
right?
yes. Okay, so here's the thing. We definitely have to end. We've run out of time, but so a couple things to think about. Number one, there's a pattern happening. Physicians not wanting to do things that cut short someone's life. They do not want to participate in assisted suicide. That is fact. They do not want to participate in abortions. That is fact. So the move then is to allow advanced practice registered nurses to provide these services. That is a fact. And what is also a fact, sadly, is that most of these nurses coalitions in Hawaii support this.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind, that that's what we're fighting up against. But here's the positive. We always want to end with the positive. There is an answer to abortion. There are pregnancy resource centers on every island that can give you great information. They can pray with you. They can help you navigate these choices. So if you're a young girl right now and you're wondering what your choices are, look at the resources. If you're watching this on the Hawaii Family Forum website, there are resources below. We'll also put some resources on below the screen for you to call and to visit. And if you just need to be plugged in to more life issues, then we're going to put the website and email for our Hawaii Life Alliance. So please do not walk away from this thinking that there's no hope, because there's always hope in Jesus. And
Amen.
life is something that's created by a God who loves you. And so we'll see you next time, and we will have Janet back as these legislative bills start moving again. We'll have her on so we can continue to keep you advised. Mahalo once again, dear viewing family, for joining us, and we will see you next week. Mahalo.